Hello, everybody. I found something interesting today while poking around with Nooch, and so I wanted to make a video. I was wanting to make it a lot fancier, a lot more high quality, but I decided instead that I just wanted to sort of tell the story of how we found it, and I didn't want to do all that work yet. So, anyway, here we go. So, you all, if you've played Mario Superstar Baseball, are probably aware of the feeling that others have echoed before of dealing with and fighting against the fielder select. So I have some videos here as examples. So in this example, you have what people call the glitch bunt, where they bunt and you don't get the right fielder. So there's not really much you can do as far as controlling and getting who you need there. You also have other scenarios that don't involve bunting, where you may not be able to get the right fielder during the process. For example, here, Birdo is moving to the right instead of to the left, and then she moves away, and you get the wrong fielder, and it ends up being safe when it could have been an easy out. You've probably experienced this before. One more example. You've probably experienced the feeling of the ball going near the corner baseman, and for some reason, they are hell bent on covering the base, and instead you're left controlling the shortstop or the second baseman. So this has been a problem for a while, and there have been some ways to try to go around this. For example, you have the manual fielder select using Project Rio. You started out with the 1.0, which was pretty straightforward. The controls to swap to the different fielders were a bit complicated, but that improved in future iterations where instead there was a cycle of controls, and you had 3.0 where you added R calculating and selecting the closest fielder. And then you had what we're at now, which is 4.0, where they've removed or they have the L for the closest drop spot. We're actually a little sooner than this, but this was the last one where you could press L and get the closest drop spot. And now they've removed L, so now we just have these one, two, three, four buttons. So this is what they did. And in the code of Mario Superstar Baseball, this is a look. You don't have to understand any of this, but the point is, this is a function that we've labeled fielding live ball. Okay. And so in this is a lot of logic related to fielding the ball. Whenever you make a code like the manual fielder select, you have to put it somewhere. It has to be in the middle of one of these existing things that the game is doing so that it knows when to actually do it. And so I made this comment here that this is where manual fielder select is injected. And I'm mentioning this because it's a little bit crazy how close people were at several different times to this find, but so far away at the same time. So anyway, with all that being said, I was looking through this in this function where manual fielder select is added. And what that does is basically say there are these things down here that where the game calculates things like the fielder select, like who's the closest, or all these other kinds of complicated rules for why they chose which fielder. Basically, the reason the game moves from one fielder to another. So, with that in mind, what they do when they do the manual fielder select is they basically say all that stuff down there, just skip it. So that's kind of what manual fielder select does. What I found today while I was looking was you have this section here where you have these things like if it's an AI team, if it's not an AI team, or if the fielder is the catcher, or all kinds of random stuff. Sometimes it doesn't make any sense, but something really stood out to me since this is fielding, which was as long as the left trigger press is 0, which means as long as the fielder is not pressing the left trigger, then all this other stuff will happen. All the things that involve recalculating and all this sort of stuff. And so my first thought was L doesn't do anything. We've never used L. The only time we used it was when we added it in manual fielder select. Why is this here? What is it doing? And so what I did was you can basically tell Dolphin or Project Rio to pause the game at a certain point in the code. So what I did was when it got to around here, I decided I was going to hold L when it paused and then see if this stuff happened. And so essentially what I found out was pressing L is like a fielder lock. You can press L, and then if you see here, I have control of Noki, right? And so what the game normally does when you move away from the ball like this is it's like, oh no, we got to be close to the ball. So they assign you Toadsworth, right? And so what happened here is what normally happens. You swapped over to Toadsworth because the game was like, okay, we got to deal with this. So then I reloaded, I held L, and this is what happened. I never lost control of Noki. It never gave me control of Toadsworth. This has been in the game the whole time. I was so in shock by this that I was thinking, okay, maybe I was looking at the file wrong. Maybe this file includes manual fielder select code somehow. It doesn't. Maybe this was something left over from Family Stadium 2003, which is the game that this game is essentially ported from. It is left over from there. It is code from that game. I looked in the other game and similar type of function exists where you hold the button and they no longer reassign your fielder. However, it's also confusing because in that game, it's mapped to the R button. So they didn't just port it over and forget about it, I guess. They ported it over. They included it. They swapped the button over. You hold down L and you retain control of your current fielder. So then I was like, we've missed things before that were in the manual. We've messed things up. And then I realized that I wanted to look it up and see if there was any reference to it. I reread the manual. I've looked for text in the game. I have looked on forums. I can't find any mention of holding L anywhere. So this is something that has existed in the game. If you bought this game in 2005 when it came out, you could have held L this whole time. When the ball is in the tornado, and it's spinning around and you lose control of your fielder when it lands, you could have been holding L since you were a child 24 years ago. But for some reason, Nintendo never mentioned this. It's not in any documents anywhere. It's not in the game anywhere that I've found. It's just been right in front of our faces. And what's so funny to me is that even our attempts to fix it or to handle the problems with it were in the same place. And we just missed it until now or didn't have the tools to find it. And yet it's been here the entire time. And for some ridiculous reason, Nintendo put this in and then didn't tell us. But now we know. So I'm not exactly sure how far the practical applications will go. I think what will happen is that it won't give you the right fielder if it's giving you the wrong fielder already, but it should give you, it should let you retain the correct fielder. So we've talked about, some of us who play online have talked about how if you don't know which fielder you're going to get, it's kind of a problem, right? Because if you go one way and then the game chooses to get you a different fielder, you're just out of position and then you miss a routine ball. But if you know who you're controlling, you can maintain control and probably a lot more reliably field it. It should help with hazards, I assume. I'm not really sure, but again, this was so weird and so on the nose. I kind of had to like question whether or not I dreamed it earlier today because it just was so ridiculous that it would exist and us not find out, and also that they would put it in and not say anything about it. So I had to like double and triple check to make sure. But I mean, you can see in the clips that it does happen. Here is one example of trying to hit it into the tornado, and which I would have caught it anyway, but I held L and I kept the fielder the whole time. Sometimes you'll get the other character coming from center field. I didn't. This was with manual fielder select off. And then you also have cases like this. I don't know if this would have been a glitch bunt, but I was immediately able to get the catcher by holding L, had control the whole time. This is crazy to me. Maybe it's crazy to you if you play this game, but it's very wild to me that it does. Here's a good example of how one strange application. You can see I have control of Waluigi the whole time, but the auto fielder gets close enough that it fields it. That was not me controlling Noki at all. So you can sometimes have cases like that, but I had control of Walu and kept control of Walu this whole time, even though it definitely should have swapped. So that I don't ramble, I'm going to stop here, wrap it up. But anyway, holding L, apparently a thing. It's been in here since the game was created. They never told us. As far as I know, they never told anybody else. So this should be the first time probably most people are hearing about this. So let me know what you think about it. Have fun. See ya.